Hi everybody, we are going to divide by whole numbers today. I'd love for you to pause the video and be able to write down the key concept in words, and then we will talk about this as well. When dividing a decimal by a whole number, place the decimal point in the quotient directly above the point in the dividend, just in case you have forgotten. This right here is the divisor. The number in the garage, as I call it, is the dividend. And the quotient is your answer that's on top. So I always think this little decimal is like a hot air balloon. So the first thing it does is it floats up before you even solve. If you float that decimal up and put it right there, you're good to go. So the next step is you say, okay, how many times does 6 go into 32? Well, 6 times 5 is 30. 5 times 6, put your 30 right here, you subtract. You'll get your 2. You bring down your 4. 6 goes into 24. 4 times. And so, sorry about the pause there. So once you have divided it out and gotten to your 0, you see in the quotient that our number is 5.4. It's a big difference from the number 54, so you need to know how the decimals work when you're dividing by a decimal. We're going to try a couple of examples together. So if you do 5 into 13.5, and just fill in the numbers as we kind of go along. First thing you do is it's a little hot air balloon and it floats to the top. Put that right there between the 3 and the 5 in the quotient. 5 goes into 13 2 times. 2 times 5 is 10. Subtract. 3 minus 0 is 3. Bring down that 5. How many times does 5 go into 35? You're right, 7 times. 7 times 5 is 35. When we subtract those two, we end up at a 0. So for this example, our answer is 2.7. Note the difference between that and 27. So now we're going to do 4 into 24.8. I can just see this right here, so I didn't put the numbers underneath, but I will as we go. I knew that 4 goes into 24 6 times. Oh, sorry, I float this to the top. 4 goes into 24 6 times, and then 4 goes into 8 2 times. If we were to do the long division approach, 4 goes into 8 2 times, so your final answer is 6.2. All right, we're going to talk about adding more zeros. And I put CCH because cows come home. Zeros are what we deal with here in this class. So if we have 8 goes into 14, well, you can't do that yet. Power of yet. So we're going to put a decimal point here, and we're going to add cows come home zeros. It doesn't matter whether you write 14 or 14.00. So watch what happens when we do 8 goes into 14, goes in there one time. 14 minus 8 is 6. Bring down one of those cows come home zeros, which are quite useful. I'm sorry, I moved too fast. We've got to float that to the top. So now we're 1, and then the decimal point goes here. Well, now I know that 8 goes into 60, a total of 7 times without going over. 7 times 8 is 56. Subtract. We have a 4, and then bring the 0 down. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. So 8 goes into 14 1.75. Notice that we used to, when you were younger, do the remainders. We don't need to do that any longer. So I've included a couple of examples here, and I want you to try them, and I know you're peeking a little bit at the answers, but try them and see if you're getting the long division process to work out the same. Forgot to write my 32 and put the 0 down here. And try 8 goes into 49.92, and then I wanted to show you with 12 goes into 29.37. We float this to the top, and when I divided this out, I divided it out to the thousandths place. Pretend that I wanted to find how many cents something is. $2 and this is 0.448 cents. If you need to round to the nearest hundredths place, you divide out to the thousandths place. Even if you don't have an answer, you would round to the nearest penny, which the 8 would make the 4 go to a 5, and so you would be paying $2.45. Every once in a while you're going to have to do that. It will say round to the nearest tenth if necessary, which means you go out to the hundredth and then you round to the tenths place. So I have a list of these that I am going to flash up here. So try number 1. 4 goes into 26, then 30 into 15.2. And what we can do right away is float that decimal point to the top on all of these. Don't forget that because it will make your number really wonky. So go ahead and pause the video and attempt those. I'm going to put the correct answer at the top. We did this one. And then I wanted to end with this one. If you have 10 questions on a test, sorry, I did this one wrong. If you have 10 questions on a test and you got 9 out of 10 correct, a really easy way to find out how you did on the test is do 9 divided by 10. Now we all know that you can't do 9 doesn't divide evenly by 10, but 9.0 does. So we float this to the top, and 9 becomes 9D, and 10 does go into 9D 9 times. So if I'm looking at this as a teacher, a 0.9, if I scooch this 2 places to the right, it becomes a 90%. So let's take this and do 8 divided by, there were 10 possible. So 10, float that decimal to the top. 10 goes into 80 8 times. So that's 880. And so remember, to find the percent, you scooch it 2 places to the right. It ends up being 80%. Just so you know, in the math class that I teach here, a 90% and above is a 4, and 80% is above is a 3, and then 10 goes into 7. 0.7, so a 70% and above is a 2. Let's try to stay out of the 70, shall we? Have a great assignment, and we will be around if you have questions.